I always believed we had the perfect life. Our mornings were filled with laughter, our evenings with quiet conversations over tea, and every little gesture between us seemed to confirm that we were made for each other. Sarah, my wife, was the kind of person who could light up a room with a smile, whose touch could calm the fiercest storms in my heart. To anyone watching, we were the ideal couple, affectionate, inseparable, and unshakably happy. Our home reflected our love, warm and inviting, with the faint scent of her favorite jasmine candles lingering in every corner. I remember watching her hum softly while making breakfast, sunlight catching in her hair, and thinking, how did I get so lucky? Every glance, every laugh, felt like a secret between us, a bond one believed nothing could break. But even in paradise, there are whispers of unease. Small things I once dismissed as insignificant, her distracted eyes, a phone tucked carefully out of sight, a late return from work, began to gnaw at the edges of my certainty. I told myself I was imagining things, that love sometimes brought quiet, unexplainable moments. Yet a small, stubborn voice in my mind whispered otherwise. I never suspected that the foundation of my world, the woman I trusted with every fragment of my heart, was capable of shattering it so completely. I believed in forever, in loyalty, in the invincible strength of our love. I was wrong. And then one evening, everything I thought I knew about my life, about us, came crashing down in the most unimaginable way. At first, I tried to ignore the unease that had begun to creep into my mind. Life had always been a rhythm of comfort, and I clung to it desperately. But over time, the small cracks became impossible to dismiss. Sarah, who once shared every detail of her day with me, had grown quieter. She laughed less, lingered less in the kitchen, and sometimes her eyes seemed to wander past me, as if searching for something or someone else. I found myself noticing things I would have overlooked before. A phone buzzing on a nightstand as she picked up a flick of her wrist, conversations cut short when I entered the room, and subtle changes in the way she touched me. Her warmth remained, but it was different now, guarded, distant, almost rehearsed. I couldn't put my finger on it, and that was the worst part. My mind spun endlessly, crafting scenarios that made my stomach twist with dread. Am I imagining this? Am I losing my mind? Sleep became a restless ritual. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for the faintest sign of a secret I couldn't name. Every smile she gave me felt like it could be masking a lie. Every whispered word, every casual brush of her hand made my heart race with suspicion. I wanted desperately to trust her, to believe that our life was still untouched by betrayal. But the gnawing feeling refused to be silenced. I started noticing patterns that once would have seemed trivial. Her late-night texts, the way she would sometimes step away to take calls, the distant tone in her voice when she spoke about her day. Each small thing, when isolated, might have been innocent, but together they painted a picture I was terrified to admit to myself. And yet, part of me clung to hope. I told myself it was stress, work, nothing more. But deep down, I could feel a growing storm, a shadow slowly stretching over the life we had built. I was teetering on the edge of a truth I wasn't ready to confront, a truth that, when revealed, would shatter everything I had ever believed about our perfect life. That evening began like any other. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the living room in a soft, amber glow. Sarah sat on the couch, a book in her lap, but she wasn't reading. Her fingers traced the edges of the pages absent-mindedly, and for a moment, I thought maybe she was lost in thought. I sank into the chair across from her, trying to summon the courage to ask the questions that had been tormenting me for weeks, but the words caught in my throat. Then she looked up. Her eyes, usually warm and inviting, held a strange, distant clarity. She took a deep breath, and my heart, which had been pounding for reasons I didn't yet understand, skipped a beat. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. There was no preamble, no hesitation, only a quiet, unnerving certainty. And then came the words I never thought I would hear from the woman I loved more than life itself. "I cheated. I'm sorry, but I don't regret it." The room seemed to collapse around me. My mind froze, caught between disbelief and horror. I blinked, hoping that the words had somehow slipped through a cruel distortion of my imagination. But her gaze held me, steady and unyielding. She wasn't joking. She wasn't testing me. She was telling the truth. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, my chest constricted, and the world narrowed to the sound of my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. I wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers, but every part of me was paralyzed. How could this be? The Sarah I knew, the Sarah who had promised forever, who had held me through sleepless nights and broken days, had done this, and she didn't regret it. Tears stung my eyes, though I refused to let them fall. A part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity, the cruelty, the impossibility of it all. But even that reaction felt too small, too insignificant. My mind raced, replaying every memory, every moment, searching for signs I had missed, clues I should have seen. How had I been so blind? Why? I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible. It sounded foreign even to me. She shrugged, almost casually, her honesty cutting through me like a blade. I don't know, she admitted. It happened. It felt right at the time. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never stopped caring about you. But I can't lie, I don't regret it. Her words were like fire against ice, a combination of truth and betrayal that seared my soul. I wanted to scream at her, to beg her for an explanation that could somehow make sense of this chaos. But I realized there was none. There was only the raw, undeniable reality. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and the life I thought we had built together was fractured beyond recognition. I sank back into the chair, numb. Anger surged, threatening to overwhelm me, but it was tangled with grief, confusion, and an aching, hollow longing for the love I believed in. I wanted to reach for her, to hold her, to erase the words from reality. But I couldn't. Not now. Not ever. And in that suffocating silence, as the last light of day faded from the room, I understood one terrifying truth. Nothing would ever feel safe again. Nothing would ever feel certain. Everything I had taken for granted, the love, the trust, the promises, had been shattered in a single, devastating confession. I couldn't stop my mind from replaying every detail of the past few months, as if searching for some hidden truth I had been too blind to see. The small, subtle moments I had dismissed now cut through me like shards of glass. I remembered the night she came home later than usual, claiming work was overwhelming, yet I had sensed a spark of nervousness in her eyes, a flicker that never belonged there. There were the whispered phone calls she took in the other room, which I had once assumed were harmless, trivial conversations. Now I saw them in a new, painful light. The casual laughter at times when I knew she was alone, it wasn't laughter shared with me. It was something secret, something I wasn't meant to hear. I recalled the evenings when she seemed distant, lost in thought, while I tried to talk, to connect, to feel that closeness we once had. I had chalked it up to stress, fatigue, maybe even a fleeting mood. But now each of those moments felt like a clue I had ignored, a warning I had failed to heed. The intimacy we shared had subtly shifted, too. Her touch, once warm and confident, had become hesitant, fleeting, almost apologetic. I had told myself it was nothing, that we all went through phases. And yet, the truth was unmistakable. Every evasive glance, every interrupted conversation, every small lie added up to a mosaic of betrayal I could no longer deny. Even the smallest things, her sudden interest in new hobbies, the way she avoided sharing details of her day, the hushed tones when the phone rang, now screamed at me from the past. The pieces of the puzzle fit together in a way I had never imagined. The person I loved, the woman I had trusted without question, had been living another reality parallel to mine. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the realization that I had been blind to it all along. I had wanted to see only what I wanted. Her love, her devotion, the life we had built. But love, as I painfully learned, is not always enough to shield us from truth. And as I sat there, staring into the empty corners of our living room, I understood that the perfect life I had cherished had been an illusion, one I had clung to too long. The days that followed her confession were a blur, a relentless storm of conflicting emotions that left me exhausted and hollow. Every corner of our home seemed to echo with her words, replaying in my mind with intensity that made it hard to breathe. I cheated. I regret nothing. I had believed love was enough. That trust was unshakable, but now I was forced to confront a truth I had never imagined. Anger surged unpredictably, hot and consuming. I wanted to scream, to tear through the walls of our home and demand answers that might never make sense. I wanted to accuse her, to shout at the universe for allowing someone I loved so deeply to hurt me so profoundly. But alongside the anger was grief, a deep, suffocating sorrow for the life I thought I had, for memories that now felt tainted, for the trust that had been obliterated in a single moment. I wrestled with questions that had no answers. Could I forgive her? Could I even try? And if I did, would our love ever be the same? Or would every smile, every touch, carry the shadow of betrayal? The idea of leaving felt both terrifying and liberating, a clean break from the pain. Yet the thought of walking away from her, from the life we built together, shattered me in ways I couldn't put into words. Sleep became a stranger. Nights stretched endlessly, filled with images of her with someone else, of whispered conversations I would never hear, of intimacy I would never share again. I felt trapped between past devotion and present devastation, unable to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had betrayed me. Friends and family offered well-meaning advice, but their words fell hollow. They didn't understand the depth of what I had lost, the intimate trust, the shared secrets, the sense of safety I had taken for granted. Even as I sought comfort, I found myself isolating, retreating into a private world of reflection, questioning my worth, our love, and the choices that had led us here. And yet, buried beneath the pain, there was a flicker of something else, a quiet determination to confront reality, to face the truth, no matter how unbearable. I realized that avoiding the agony would not heal me. Only by facing it could I find clarity, even if that clarity came a heartbreak. I had to decide whether to fight for what remained of our relationship or to let it crumble, acknowledging that some wounds, no matter how deeply buried, could never fully heal. In that emotional battlefield, I felt both lost and strangely alive, caught between love and betrayal, hope and despair. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that whatever choice I made next would define not just our marriage, but the rest of my life. I finally couldn't bear the silence any longer. I needed answers, not excuses, not apologies, but the raw truth. I found Sarah in the kitchen, standing by the sink, her hands gripping the counter as if it anchored her to reality. I swallowed hard, my voice trembling, and asked a question that had haunted me since her confession. Who was it? Her eyes met mine, calm yet piercing, and she didn't flinch. It doesn't matter, she said softly. It wasn't about them. It was about me. The words struck me like a physical blow. I wanted to shake her, to force her to explain the impossible, to justify the betrayal. But I also wanted to vanish, to escape the crushing weight of her honesty. When did it happen? I pressed, my hands shaking, voice rising despite my attempts to stay composed. Several months ago, she admitted. It wasn't planned. It happened, and I didn't stop it. I know it hurts, and I know it changes everything. But I can't lie about how I feel. I never stopped caring about you, but I can't pretend that I regret what I did. I felt my chest tighten, the room spinning around me. How could someone I loved so deeply speak these words without a hint of remorse? The calm certainty in her tone made my anger burn hotter, but it also left me hollow, uncertain, incapable of fully processing betrayal. Why? I demanded, the single word heavy with all the pain, confusion, and disbelief I had carried for weeks. She hesitated, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something I hadn't expected. Regret, not for the act itself, but perhaps for the damage it had caused me. I don't know, she said finally. It wasn't about you. It was about a part of me I couldn't control. I didn't plan it, and I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't change it. The silence that followed was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg for an explanation that could make sense of this unbearable reality. But the truth was stark, undeniable, and merciless. The woman I had trusted with my entire heart had betrayed me, and the answers I sought offered no solace, no resolution. Only more questions, and a gnawing, relentless ache that would not fade. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. The confrontation I had longed for didn't bring clarity. It brought the raw, unfiltered truth. And sometimes, truth is far more painful than ignorance ever could be. In the days that followed our confrontation, I found myself trapped in a limbo between heartbreak and the faintest glimmer of hope. Every time I looked at Sarah, I saw both the woman I loved and the woman who had shattered my trust. Every word she spoke felt heavy with meaning, yet light with ambiguity. I was caught between two impossible choices: to stay and try to rebuild what had been broken, or to leave and preserve whatever dignity and sanity I had left. I walked through our home as if seeing it for the first time. The photographs of happy moments mocked me. The shared souvenirs of trips and celebrations felt tainted, and every familiar corner seemed to whisper reminders of betrayal. Yet, there were moments when her presence still comforted me. The way she laughed softly when I entered the room, the gentle brush of her hand when she passed by, the quiet companionship we had cultivated over years. Those moments confused me, made the choice even more unbearable. I debated endlessly, weighing loyalty against self-preservation, love against betrayal. Could trust ever be rebuilt after such a fracture? Could I open my heart to someone who had proven that it could be so easily broken? Each question seemed heavier than the last, each possibility more terrifying than the one before. Friends offered advice, but it felt hollow. Some urged me to leave, to reclaim my life before it was completely consumed by pain. Others suggested forgiveness, a chance to salvage the life we had once cherished. But no words could answer the gnawing emptiness in my chest, the doubt that lingered in every quiet moment. Late at night, I would sit by the window, staring at the stars, trying to imagine a future that felt possible. Could I forgive her? Could we move forward together, even as a memory of betrayal shadowed every step? Or was it wiser to walk away, to leave behind the life we built and start again alone, carrying the scars but regaining control of my heart? The truth was unavoidable. Whatever choice I made would change everything. The life we had known, the comfort, the laughter, the sense of safety, was gone. I was standing at the edge of a precipice, and the path I chose next would define the rest of my life. I didn't yet know which path I would take, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever feel the same again. Life didn't return to normal. Not really. Even the familiar rhythms of our home, morning coffee, the quiet evenings, the shared laughter, felt different, tinged with a sense of fragility I couldn't ignore. I moved through the days like a ghost, my heart heavy with the weight of betrayal, my mind trapped in an endless loop of what-ifs and could-have-beens. I tried to talk to Sarah, to bridge the chasm that had opened between us, but even conversation felt awkward now. Words seemed hollow, carrying the shadow of truths we could no longer ignore. Simple gestures, touching her hand, sharing a smile, were fraught with tension. Every interaction reminded me that trust, once broken, cannot be easily repaired. I noticed small changes in myself, too. I became hyper-aware of her movements, her words, her silences. I questioned every glance, every tone, every laugh. The intimacy we had shared was now laced with suspicion and caution. Sleep continued to elude me, and when I did rest, dreams of betrayal haunted me, replaying every moment in excruciating detail. Friends and family watched, offering sympathy and advice, but even their presence reminded me of what I had lost: the certainty of love, the invincible bond one had once taken for granted. I found myself withdrawing, seeking solace in solitude, reflecting on my emotions, my choices, and the uncertain future that stretched before me. And yet, amidst the pain, there were moments of clarity. I began to understand that life, even after heartbreak, goes on, that healing doesn't happen overnight, but it begins when we confront reality instead of burying it. Some days, I could laugh again, a little lighter, a little freer, though the scars remained. Some days, I could see Sarah not as a betrayer, but as a human being who had made a devastating choice, one that changed us forever. I realized that the perfect life I had imagined was gone, irretrievably altered. But life itself persisted, messy and beautiful, painful and fleeting. And as I began to navigate this new reality, I understood that survival didn't mean forgetting. It meant learning, growing, and finding a way to live with the truth, no matter how unbearable it seemed. Time moved slowly, but it moved nonetheless. I came to understand that some wounds never fully heal, and some betrayals leave scars that linger in every glance, every word, every shared moment. The life I once imagined, the perfect, unshakable life with Sarah, was gone, replaced by a reality I could neither deny nor escape. Yet, in that harsh clarity, I found a fragile kind of peace. Acceptance wasn't about forgetting or excusing what had happened. It was about acknowledging the truth, facing the pain, and finding a way to carry it forward without letting it consume me. I realized that life, even when fractured, still holds moments of beauty, connection, and unexpected grace. Whether Sarah and I could rebuild our marriage remained uncertain. Perhaps we would try, cautiously, learning to navigate the remnants of trust. Perhaps we would part ways, each carrying the lessons and scars of what had transpired. Either path required courage, honesty, and a willingness to confront reality without illusions. As I looked at her one quiet evening, I understood that love is not always simple, and life is rarely perfect. But even amidst heartbreak, there's resilience, there's growth, and there's the enduring possibility of healing. And that, somehow, is enough to keep moving forward.